We will activate this journey. So now this journey will not consume data directly from this data extension. There has to be an API call which will put data inside this data extension and hit this event journey. And the event journey's event definition key is this. This is the most important thing. Now to work with APIs, you require client ID, client secret, access token. You require client ID, client secret. API calls will log into Marketing Cloud using client ID, client secret. Once they log in, they will get an authentication token that is known as access token. Like you log in with your username and password and then you approve it from Authenticator app. Similar way, Marketing Cloud APIs will require client ID, client secret to log into Marketing Cloud for making any API call, and then an access token would be returned. That access token will be used to make REST and SOAP API calls. To generate client ID and client secret, we have to go to setup. This is the second step while we work for APIs. Inside setup, we have to go to apps and we have installed packages as an option. We have installed packages as an option. Once we click on installed package, we have to create a package for making API calls. You can click on new option here. You can name it as new batch package, or you can say API package. Click on save option. Once you click on save option, you have to go down and click on add components. Choose API integration here. Click on next option. Choose server to server integration. Click on next. For server to server, you will get the client credentials, which is client ID, client secret, and give the permissions your API call should do. Like it should send emails. Okay, it should send push notifications, which we will see. It's a very small topic. If you cover email, everything, these all are just configurations. Okay. Then web means web studio. Assets means images, emails, contents. The API call should read automations. If you want them to read automations, you can select read, write, execute. Journeys, your API call should execute journeys, read, write, execute. Contacts. Okay, select what all permissions you want to give to your API call which are applicable. So most of the important permissions we have already given. Once we have given all the permissions, we will click on save option. Once we click on save option, we get API package details. In this API package details, we get client ID, we get client secret, we get authentication base URL, we get REST base URL, we get SOAP base URL. Client ID and client secret and authentication URL, these three will be used to generate access token. These three will be used to generate access token. Once you get the access token, from this access token, you have to make API calls. Now we don't have any website which we can try. making API calls. We don't have a mobile application also. In fact, whenever you are working with a project, you are not entitled to handle all websites and apps because that is not your area of concern. You will only be required to develop an API call and provide to a concerned team so that they can set up on their platform. You will always be receiving data from other systems to Marketing Cloud. Very rarely you will be sending data out of Marketing Cloud. If you are sending data out of Marketing Cloud, SFTP export we have studied. Most of the time you will be receiving calls from a website, you will be receiving calls from a particular app or any other CRM platforms. So your work is to develop API and give to the concerned team. Your work is not go to website, configure and then test. So to work and develop APIs and to give it to concerned team, you have to use an API testing platform. That API testing platform which we will use is Postman API testing platform. Once you type Postman API testing platform, if you do not already have its account, go and create an account on Postman website. So I already have an account on Postman, so I will directly sign in. So this is how a Postman API testing platform looks. Okay. You see workspace here. Go to my workspace. Once you go to my workspace, I have already saved some of the APIs. You don't need to remember these APIs as well. You Google Marketing Cloud sample Postman APIs, you will get a list of all APIs for your testing on GitHub. What you have to write? SFMC sample Postman APIs GitHub. Once you type this, you get a Git repository, a complete Git repository. Okay, where you get all the sample APIs. There you get all the sample APIs. These sample APIs I have integrated with my own Postman account. These are Data Cloud APIs. Here is the Marketing Cloud Postman APIs. So you will get all these instructions here to install these APIs inside your Postman account. I will export this and give it to you. Okay, you can install it inside your Postman. I'll export it. Once I have exported, to import that, you have an option to import. Just drag and drop that file which I am going to give you. Okay, and you will be able to install all these Postman APIs. So you don't, the APIs are very simple. Okay, you don't need to actually remember this, but you will work with APIs to test the connections before you give that connection API to a third party team. For example, we have to trigger this journey. So suppose you have a website on which the transactions are happening, and you got a requirement that whenever a transaction happened, that data should come to Marketing Cloud and email should be sent in real time. This is a business scenario, a real time business scenario which we are going to work. Invoice transaction project was still not complete because whatever we did was non real time, but it actually requires all the real time approach. So now you got a business scenario. Now website team will require Marketing Cloud APIs. They do not know anything about Marketing Cloud. So you will develop an API, sample API, and send to them. They will configure on their website. Now to develop and test, you require a Postman platform. So to work with Postman platform, you have created a workspace and account on the Postman. The first thing is the first step to get the access token using client ID, client secret. So to get the access token using client ID and client secret, you have to make a post request. Here it is a post request. Okay, this is the authentication base URL. This is the authentication base URL followed by /v2/token. This authentication base URL, you will get it from here. Whatever API package you have built, from here you will get the authentication base URL. Copy this authentication base URL, go to Postman, put it, and then write /v2/token. With this authentication URL /v2/token, you will get a bearer access token. Bearer access token is required to make any API call, and then you have to provide client ID and client secret and account ID of your Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So client ID is here, which you got from API package. Copy this client ID, paste it here. Client secret is here, paste it here, and account ID. This is the MID on which you have to require a API call. Copy this MID and paste it here. Once you do this, click on send option. So you get an access token. This is the first step to authenticate using client ID, client secret. And in second step, you get the access token. Now, once you get this access token, you can use this access token to make further API calls. Copy this access token. Okay. Suppose you have to insert data in the data extension using API. Suppose this is the data extension, you have to insert data inside this data extension. Then you will use that access token to make another API call for data insertion. For example, we have one API for data extension, data insert, where in items we have listed down all the attributes of that data extension which we have to insert. So now to make a data extension, data insert, you have to either choose a REST API or a SOAP API. So we will see data extension, which API can be used. So Contact Builder contains data extension and Contact Builder supports REST API. So to make a data insertion, you have to copy the REST base URL. For making a REST API call, you have to copy the REST base URL. Copy the REST base URL. Once you copy this REST base URL, put it here. Put it here. followed by data, followed by v1, followed by async, followed by data extension, followed by key, and provide data extension external key in which you want to insert the data. Provide the data extension external key. Remember, we have used external key in filter activity in automation. The same external key will be used here. Now, this all you don't have to remember. You already will get APIs. Nobody will ask you. All these are paths already available on Google. Okay, you just have to replace your attributes, your REST based SOAP URLs, authentication URL correctly, your client ID, client secret correctly. So once we have defined REST URL followed by data extension external key, you have to provide attributes and their details. For example, the data extension contains following attributes. Let's see what all attributes we have. Subscriber key, email address, first name, last name, country, phone number, date of birth. All these details we have. Okay. Suppose we only have subscriber key, email address, first name, last name as 4 attributes to be inserted. Subscriber key, email address, first name, last name. These 4 attributes we only want to insert suppose. So in items, we will list down what all data we want to insert. Okay, now this is a complete API call which is ready. So now we'll again go back to first step. First we will authenticate. Once we authenticate, we get the token. Copy that token from here. The complete token. Once you copied the token, go to another API. Here you have authorization. Go to authorization. Here is the token option. Put the token here which you got. Once you put that token here, okay, go to body and click on send. Once you click on send, you get this message. Once you get this message, that means API data insert is successful. In real time, you will see that data has been inserted. But data has not been inserted. Why? Because only one is nullable. One attribute is nullable. All these attributes are required. So if you miss any required attribute, it won't insert data. Country and phone number are also required attribute. Country and phone number are also required attribute. Country, India. Phone number. Let me try to send that request again. That token is valid for 1 minute. So in 1 minute, you can make n number of API calls. So now I have provided all the required attributes, and you see that from a third-party system, which we are using as a postman, we got the data inserted inside this data extension. You change the value, you change the subscriber key, you change the country, you make then data insertion call. The token is valid for 1 minute. After 1 minute, it won't allow to insert. You have to request another token. So you see that 2 records have been inserted in real time. Okay. So this is how you get data from third-party system to Marketing Cloud. Now, once we get this data to this data extension, we also have to trigger this journey. This journey has to be triggered. And this journey has this API event definition key. So we have another API for event definition journey, API event journey. In this API event journey, again, journey REST or SOAP API, let's check. Journey builder is using REST API. So we will use REST base URL here. We will use REST base URL here. REST base URL. Then this is the API call where we have to define the API event key. API definition key we have to define. So we went and we defined API definition key. Suppose subscriber key, email address, first name, last name. We have country, USA. Somebody has purchased our product from USA, suppose, and phone number as this. So now again we will go to authentication. We require a authentication token. Once we get this authentication token, we copy this token, then we go to event journey. In the authorization, we'll put that token, go to body and click on send. So it says error. That means we have made some error. Let's see what is the error. Here we missed the comma. Now again let's send. Now this says that event ID created. Once event ID is created, two things happen. First is data would be inserted inside this data extension. You see that data is inserted inside this data extension. Once data is inserted inside this data extension, the journey will also trigger that data. You see contact accepted one. It is the same contact. Okay, let me refresh it. You see one email is sent. To whom email was sent? To this email address. Let me change the email address. Let me put my own email address. Let me change the contact key. Let me click on send. So now this triggered another journey. This triggered another journey. Another data was entered. Once this data was entered, let's see journey. If journey received the response, click on view event. 2 contacts are accepted. Let's see if we got the data. We got the invoice. Okay, we have definitely got the invoice. There is some mismatch with subscriber keys. Here I am not using the correct subscriber key. That is why product images are not being shown. But this is how we work with APIs. So now guys, once you have tested these APIs, you can go and click on export this and send to the concerned team. You should export this and send to concerned team. So APIs work in 3 steps. The first step is to define API journey. The first step is to define API journey. Once you define API journey, you will get API event key. Then you have to create a server to server integration API package, which you will give you client ID and client secret. Once you get client ID, client secret, you can use that client ID, client secret to access Marketing Cloud token. Once you get Marketing Cloud token, you can use REST and SOAP API to trigger the responses, transactions. So this step you have to remember. Not more than this you have to remember in the API testing. Because you won't work on website, you won't work on apps, or you won't ever work on any third party system apart from Marketing Cloud. You are just responsible to receive data, provide the right connections. Go and once you have tested this, tell them this is our client ID, this is our client secret to the concerned team, this is our authentication base URL. First you will use this authentication base URL, client ID and client secret to request token. Once you get that token, use that token to trigger a REST API if that API falls under REST category. Suppose somebody has to update a data extension, somebody has to trigger a journey, provide REST API URL. If somebody has to do something in subscribers lists, some list they have to update, some tracking details they have to fetch, or other email send activities, ask them, give them the SOAP API. But generally, you will only work with REST APIs. REST API packages permissions you can edit or deny as per your requirement.